Red Eclipse is a work of alternate history fiction set during the Cold War. The following events are based on the Cold War Iron Curtain, a world-divided mod for Hearts of Iron 4. 1949, A Broken Promise. The Great Patriotic War is over, and the workers have expelled the evils of fascism and capitalism from the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics and the rest of Eastern Europe. The German wolf is now nothing more than a neutered pup, locked in a cage guarded by the mightiest of Soviet soldiers. Though the war is over, the struggle of the workers continues. In Greece, the workers have risen in open revolution against the despotism of monarchy. However, the USSR had made a percentages agreement with the West during the Yalta Conference, which limited the Union's influence over the country. Despite this, Comrade Stalin could not sit idly by and let the comrades of Greece be destroyed, and sent material aid, advisors and volunteers to help in the ongoing Greek Civil War. As the tide slowly began to turn in the Soviets' favor, the country shifted its focus onto another matter: Berlin. The Berlin blockade was still ongoing, as was the Berlin airlift by the Allies to alleviate the suffering happening in the city. However, the airlift was suspended on June 6th, when the United States announced that the Deutsche Mark, West Germany's currency, would no longer be circulated in West Berlin. For many in the West and the East, this was seen as a victory for Stalin and the Communist East, but time would tell if the blockade would be lifted or maintained. As the Greek communists advanced southwards to Athens, plans were already being made for an invasion of Turkey due to the ongoing Turkish Straits crisis. Stalin offered Turkey one last chance to resolve the matter diplomatically, which Turkey foolishly rejected. With help from the recently established Democratic Republic of Greece, communist forces invaded Anatolia with the aim of establishing a Soviet military administration in Turkey, as well as redrawing the borders of the Bosphorus and Anatolia to ensure order and free the oppressed Armenians, Greeks and Kurds living there. By March 1st of 1950, the entire eastern Mediterranean was under Soviet control, with the exception of the British-controlled Cyprus. 1950s Part 1, Korea Goes Red. On May 7, 1950, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea crossed the 38th parallel and invaded South Korea. In 1 week, they had captured the southern capital of Seoul and were well on their way towards Busan. But the tide began to turn in late June when UN coalition forces retook the city and were now moving north towards the DPRK. In order to ensure the best Korea wins this war, the USSR directly intervened in Kim's favor on June 26th, shocking the West and emboldening the communists. Despite Soviet intervention, more was needed to counterbalance the insanely diverse coalition of UN forces, which included troops from as far as Colombia and Ethiopia. By October of 1950, Mao would also join the war in the North's favor, pushing the coalition out of North Korea and retaking Seoul. The Third Battle of Seoul was a hard victory for the communists, as both sides were increasingly exhausted as the war kept progressing. Thankfully, on January 21st of 1951, the UN coalition forces and the Republic of Korea surrendered after the communist forces took the city of Daegu. Victory meant that the DPRK was now free to join Cominform as a full member. But many in the West saw this for what it really was. The USSR had just turned Korea into its latest puppet state. 1950s Part 2, The Germans Will Be Divided. In March of 1952, Comrade Stalin sent a note to the West detailing a plan for a neutral and united Germany. Despite the heartfelt attempt at establishing a genuine peace in Central Europe, the West rejected the idea, calling it a clear communist ploy to destroy West Germany. In response to this blatant insult, Stalin established the Austrian Democratic Republic in the Soviet occupation zone of Austria. The West, predictably, established their own pro-NATO Republic of Austria in their zones. For now, and for decades to come, both Germany and Austria would remain divided. 1950s Part 3, Good Night, Comrade. On March 1st, 1953, terrible news rocked the USSR as it was announced that Premier Stalin had died at the age of 74. A great power struggle ensued between Communist Party leaders over who would be the next General Secretary of the USSR, with Malenkov emerging as the victor after the 20th CPSU Congress in August of 1954. Malenkov immediately set out to make significant financial reforms to the USSR and the rest of the Warsaw Pact countries, as well as embracing détente with the rest of Europe rather than continued isolation and hostility. The opening of diplomacy proved to be immensely beneficial to the Eastern Bloc, as world tensions decreased and it proved to the West that the new USSR leadership could be trusted. A great diplomatic achievement during this time was completed when a formal peace treaty was signed with Japan, returning the southern Kuril Islands to them in exchange for recognition of Soviet ownership of Sakhalin Island and the Northern Kurils. However, the greatest of all these diplomatic efforts was the creation of a pan-European Union. Of all 20 countries invited, all but one, the United Kingdom, signed the treaty and became founding members of the Union. This union made trade, investment, technological research sharing and construction efficiency between member nations incredibly easy and profitable, strengthening the ties between East and West. Another of Malenkov's achievements was the cancellation of the 5-year plan and its replacement with a 7-year plan. Good grief, I give up. I've spent like $10 quadrillion on this damn focus tree just to castrate my production efficiency to build Soviet consumer goods. If by some bloody miracle the USSR doesn't collapse by 1960, then I guess everyone becomes a fully automated luxury space gay communist. Happy April Fools.